You're listening to the Jam Price Show all about movies, and today my guest is Anders Lindwall. Hello, Anders. And we're going to talk about this really heartwarming film entitled Green and Gold. So, welcome to the show, Anders.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. This is a great film to start off the new year with, actually. So, it's heartwarming, it's touching, it's based on a true story, which I always love, and it just it made me cry, and I always when a movie moves me emotionally, I that's what movies are meant to be, as far as I'm concerned, and I say that all the time. So, it really did touch me. So the audience knows of what we're going to be talking about. Why don't you give the audience a brief synopsis of what Green and Gold is all about?
Yeah, it's a really simple film, and it's a story of an old dairy farmer in Wisconsin who finds out that his family farm, it's a multi-generational farm, is going under. And so the story follows him and his granddaughter trying to save their little farm from going back to the bank. So um yeah, where the Packers come into play is he works a deal with the banker to extend the life of his loan if the unlikely Packers win the Super Bowl. And so the story kind of follows, um, yeah, really the family story of the grandfather, granddaughter, and then in the background is sort of this Packer narrative.
And it stars the wonderful, I just adore him, Craig T. Nelson, who's been around by his own accord. He says 50 years. He's been performing for 50 years. But I want to read a quote that really tells you a lot about what this film's about from Craig T. Nelson. He said,
Mhm.
among all the great projects I've had the privilege to be a part of in my life, this film might be my favorite. At this
Mhm.
stage in my life, a story that has heart like this and tells the truth. That is what I was seeking. And that truth is what I wanted to impart to my children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren. I thought
Mhm.
that was such a beautiful quote and
Yeah.
tells you so much about the heart and soul of Green and Gold. When you heard it, when you read that or heard that quote from him, what were your first thoughts?
The first time I heard him mention something like that was we were on set actually, towards the end of filming. And, I just, because this is my first movie, I had never had the opportunity to do this. And so, but towards the end of filming, I remember he pulled me aside and said, all of this has felt so real. He's like, I can't believe how real it's all, the whole experience. Um, and he's like, I think this might be one of my favorite projects I've ever been a part of. And it totally floored me. I mean, here's a legend who's been around forever doing this with some really, really amazing projects. And but I think he just, I think the story just really resonated with him. And I mean, that in hindsight, from that moment, I was like, okay, I guess I can see why. I mean, he took a flyer on us. We're no-namers, making our first movie, and here, he reads the script, and there was something in the script that just really, really struck him. And then I think our overall approach, um, is really what continued to resonate with him. And but I don't know, it's like that's a humbling thing to hear. Um, but I also like I think at the end of the day when he said like a story that has truth and heart, like I know, even if I get a chance to make more movies, like this one will always have so much heart in it and so much that I believe is right and true and good. And I think that's where Craig really aligned as well.
Those are the kinds of stories we need now more than ever.
Mm.
I was at a function last night with some filmmakers, and I've said it many times, but I'll say it again. I think movies are really what's going to save us through some of it has throughout decades. Movies have been what has uh, given obviously for when we're going through hard times, it's the films that help get us through those difficult times, and certainly through the Depression and World War II, and other catastrophic events like the assassination of President Kennedy. And and his brother Robert Kennedy. And it's the films that that can uplift us and make us feel better about humanity,
Hmm.
and not to go into grief and despair about what's going on in the rest of the world. And I think there's a shift. I feel a shift in the movie industry to find more enlightening and heartwarming kinds of stories. That there's so many of them to be told, but that's what's going to save us through these dark times that that we're going through, that many people are feeling.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's not really cool when you're a young filmmaker to make a real wholesome, heartwarming film. Like there's nothing zeitgeist about it, there's nothing provocative in the story. And but I think what's happened historically with film, like one of the main components of story, right, is drama and conflict. And for a long time, I think filmmakers were like, "Oh, I want to represent the reality. The world is dark. The world is, life is hard." And it certainly is. But I think from my perspective, the way in which those story or I guess the amount of stories that are showing like the dark side of life and the hard things of life is unbalanced compared to the good things in life. And it's like a John Denver. It's hard to write a happy song. It's hard to make a happy movie that's not a Hallmark movie.
Right,
And
right.
and it really is. Like that was a real challenge for us, was the whole time we wanted to run this line of like we want it to be hopeful, we want it to be uplifting, but we don't want it to be cheesy. Like we really don't want it to be cheesy. And so, both by trying to tell the truth with the harsh realities, of like life on the farm, um, countered that with the reality of there's a benevolent community, especially in that part of the world, that really exists and rallies around each other and loves one another. Neighbors really take care of each other up there, and that is true. That happens all the time, and so that's what we were hoping this story could highlight.
And it does. And this actually became the community. Where did you film this, by the way?
We filmed it in Door County, Wisconsin, primarily.
Okay, and the community came together to help
Yeah,
make this movie.
yeah, they totally.
It takes a
Yeah,
village, as they
it
say.
does. Yeah, the Packers are so in the film, the Packers sort of represent this collective community. They're a community-owned sports team, and um,
That I did not know. That was something I had never heard before until I was doing my research, and I was really surprised about that. That's pretty amazing in itself.
super
It says a whole
special.
lot.
Oh yeah, it's so special. I mean, and that was the impetus too for us wanting, aside from being a huge passionate Packer fan my whole life, it's like a team that has this. It's bigger than just one owner who sits on top of the chair. It's this large community who sort of is interested and participates in the sports franchise. So, um, but yeah, the folks of Door County. I mean, my brother and I had a hunch just from growing up there that people would open doors and help us. But because even when we were in high school, if we wanted to film a hospital scene, the local hospital would say like, sure, just you can use that hallway over there. Like you don't have to sign anything. It's just they help you out. It's not because we're filmmakers. They help us out because that's just what they do. But the level of generosity and participation from farmers to the city of Sturgeon Bay, like people shutting down streets for us for free so we could drive a tractor through. There were just so many amazing, uh, benevolent um, offerings that people just poured out on us. Like, oh yeah, you need a truck? Sure, you can use this one here. I'll bring it down there. You guys can have it as long as you want. That type of spirit. And when you're filming in other parts of the country, that doesn't happen. You got to pay for everything. You get nickeled and dimed. But I think for them, there's not a lot of movies that get shot up there, but they're really interested in the arts. And I think for them it was fun to see, and to have a guy like Craig be our representative from Los Angeles, and couldn't have been a better person because he dignified everybody he encounters. He would sit down with the farmers and ask them questions about their life. He would, people be yelling at coach, and he would just be like, go talk to anybody. And so it was, I think there was a lot of mutual benefit for everybody involved. as a part of the project.
Well, that's part of the Midwestern values too.
It is. Yeah,
The heartland.
it
There's
is.
no question.
Yeah, yeah. It's
And
so so lovely.
then it's represented there. And then Craig T. Nelson sang the national anthem at a Packers game. I mean, how did that come about? And he has a really good voice.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. So it's when we were partnering up with the Packers organization, we actually me and my brother pitched it to them. We said, "Hey, what could we have somebody sing the national anthem?" Because so Jackson Brown, the artist, just gave us a bunch of music just because he loved the project and wanted the project to have good music in it.
Nice.
And so initially we were like, maybe Jackson could sing on behalf of the film. And then we were like, you know what? Craig's been so intertwined through the whole process of, um, and I was like, maybe we should give him a chance and see if he would want to do it. So I called him and he said, yeah, let's do it. And then I called the Packers and said, hey, what if Craig can sing? And they said, can he audition? And I was like, uh, I don't think he's done an audition since coach. That was his last audition he did, because he just gets projects given to him now. So, but Craig graciously went into a studio and sang the national anthem, and it sounded really, really good. And so, yeah, the Packers gave him the thumbs up, and yeah, in front of 80,000 people at about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, it was freezing. Craig's 80 years old and sang the national anthem. It's pretty awesome.
That's very awesome. Very awesome. Yeah, really is. People have to find that clip. We'll definitely try to include it when we put it out there. So let's talk about Culver's because they were very big in filming this, and I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Culver's and the project that they also fund.
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks for asking about that. So when you're an independent film, you're always looking for any angle you can of support, and some of that, can come through studios. And for us, we just had the idea of um, what if we got a brand who aligned with us enough, didn't want to change the movie, but would basically provide us, sponsorship cash to help us activate on a really large scale, like way, to punch way above our class. And so we knew about Culver's just from growing up there. They're the Midwest In and Out is how I describe them. And maybe In and Out describes themselves as the West Coast Culver's. I'm not sure, but yeah, they're just a lovely brand. They have a great spirit and culture, and they've had this Thank You Farmers project, which has been going since 2013, where they donate a bunch of money to agricultural education. And so, they're Wisconsin based, have a huge passion for farmers, and so we got the project in front of them, and they, I wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be. Like this is my first time doing it, but their marketing team had tears in their eyes and they said, we don't want to change a thing about this movie. Like we're hands off with it, but what can we do to help get this message out into the world? And yeah, like that's the real truth of it. And so we ended up, I was like, hey, I want to help represent, like try to match your level of gratitude. Like, can we put in some kind of little product placement? So there's a little product placement that we volunteered to put in just as like just to try to I think just to try to represent our gratitude because they're activating this on a level that we would never have been able to otherwise. And so yeah, their stores are printing off posters and sticking them in bags of food, and they're a proud supporter of FFA, Future Farmers of America, which is a nationwide uh, training ground for young farmers. And yeah, we hope the film can really inspire that group of people of particularly young farmers to see the value in what they're doing, to see stewardship in a real important way, and to know that the rest of the world sees them, values them, and appreciates the hard work that they do.
We need them.
Hmm.
We need them.
I don't know how to farm.
I don't know how to farm either. And when you realize that it's generations and generations of farmers, this is what
Mhm.
they know, and that's obviously what's in the story too. But it's when you see what they go through and how difficult it is to be a farmer today, it's just mind-boggling that they
Yeah.
even continue to do it. And in the story, the granddaughter does not want to continue to be in the family business, and that's part of the a little bit of the conflict in it. And doing the research, you wrote this too, or were one of the writers on this, and that in the character of the granddaughter, you saw yourself. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like so my brother and I, our grandfather was a dairy farmer. And so we grew up kind of, and our family still had the farm. It wasn't functioning at the point when we came around. But we still had the land and a neighboring farmer, and our cousins were involved with FFA. And so we kind of grew up around agrarian lifestyles and small, in particular, a small town and right on the Michigan, Wisconsin border. And and it was, as a kid, you're just like, all I want to do is get out of here. You're like, I just want to go see the bigger things. I want to go see what else is the world has to offer. And then, halfway through like the first draft of the script, I realized I was writing my own. I didn't know that. I was writing my own character into Jenny, um, and that desire, that longing that the young have for, um, there's a monologue where Craig says, you'll go chasing your hopes and dreams. You're going to go looking for that thing to fill that emptiness inside of you. And that was what it was. It's like you're trying to figure out what is missing in your heart and in your life that could fulfill it. And you realize, those of us as we start to get, I'm still a young guy. I'm not, maybe I'm on the second half of my life, but I'm getting close. You start to realize the different things that are important to you, and the beauty that was around you the whole time that you'd been just totally missing and totally blind to. There was one particular moment I remember when I was in college, I was trying to go meet my favorite author. And my mom was like, she was trying to understand. She's like, why do you want to go meet this author? And I was like, oh, he's inspired me. He's written all these great things. He's such a great man. And she's like, if you're just missing all of the amazing people that you grew up around who've poured years and years into shaping you and sculpting you, she's like, you should go spend some time with them and invest into them and so I think, that's sort of the spirit that I think I'm excited about, is kind of this spirit of not looking for greener grass all the time, especially with social media, as young folks, it's like you're bombarded with everything else but where you are. And I think this film hopefully can be a good reminder to people of, right where your feet are probably has some really amazing things around it. You just need the right eyes to see it. So
Beautiful. That's beautiful. And you have a very wise mother, by the way, too.
Yes, she's wild.
So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, for sure. How,
Yeah.
so you went to college in LA, correct? Film
Mhm.
school in LA, and then so you decided to come back and film this. How was that for you to go back and to film, in this town and, near you where you grew up?
Yeah.
What was that like for you after having been away for quite a while?
Yeah, I mean the advantage you have to it is like you see it all with new eyes again, and for us, my brother and I, that's where we want to film a lot of our projects. The stories up there are just, stories we're so familiar with, and you gotta preach what It's like these are the people that I know, the world that I know. So, um, I think it was just there was an extra spirit of life-givingness to it. These independent projects are hard. It's like it's war. You're just up against so many odds and deadlines, and I don't think, a lot of folks on the outside who've never done it before recognize just the pace and the difficulty of it. And, nobody's getting paid, and everybody's just, I'm moving. My brother and I, we each had young kids. We're moving our wives up there, and, it's tough. And, but to know, I remember there was one scene in particular where there was a choir we needed for this scene, and my sister organized a bunch of folks from our community, and they drove 2.5 3 hours down and just sat in this church building with us. And I remember looking around, and there's you know 30 people that I knew growing up my whole life, and um, I was just like, man, it's just so special when you can do it. When you can do filmmaking with people who love you and care about you, and they don't care about just the fame and what you're trying to do or the sexiness of the Hollywood thing. They just care about you, and they believe in the stories that you're trying to tell and put out in the world. That's like, that it's really, really special. I'm choked up just thinking about it, just yeah, it's amazing. I wouldn't want it any other way, especially for our first film.
So wonderful. That's why I love what I do. So I get to give people like you a voice and
Mm,
talking about their passion and their projects and, and how important independent films are.
mm,
Very
yeah.
important. Those in documentaries, so very extremely important. There's another wonderful story about Craig T. Nelson that I'm going to ask you about the camera,
Mm.
the second camera. Do you want to share that story? Because I think that just, again tells you so much about his character, about who he is, and you can feel and when you watch this movie uh the the love that went into making it comes across on the screen and that comes from the top down. You and your brother is the
Yeah.
producer. Your brother was supposed to be on the show today but is having difficulties traveling right now. Unfortunately, he produced it, but also from the lead actor and actress. Usually they set the tone of how the film is going to go. And he set a beautiful tone. Craig T. Nelson did. So you want to share that story? I thought that
Mm.
really said a whole lot about who he is.
Totally. Yeah, no, and it shocked me, because so it was on day two of filming. And from my perspective, all I've known of Craig is, this this mythological person that I've seen in movies and says yes to being on this part of our film. We Zoom once, he flies out, we have like 4 days of prep and rehearsal, and we start shooting. And then day two, so I don't know him that well at this point, right? It's he's a mystery, I'm a mystery to him. And he pulls me aside, he's like, Anders, come here. He's like, where's your second camera? And I started cracking up. I was like, Craig, my brother was negotiating with you against trying to get you an espresso machine because we didn't have the cash for it. Like, we certainly don't have cash for a second camera. And I was like, this is independent film. We get one. And he goes, well, how much do those things cost, And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I can get you a number. I'd have to ask, some of the producers, that kind of thing. He goes, well, you know what? Whatever it is, take it out of my rate. And if you need more, just let me know. And I'm happy to contribute and make sure we can get second camera here. And I turned and I was like, what? Like, who does that? Here he is, 80 or at that point he was 77, 78. He's rolling around in, cow shit in Wisconsin with us. And then he's like, on top of that, he's just lavishing us with his laughter and his wisdom and his kindness. And then to do that, it was just an abundance. And you could tell it's like this man operates from a spirit of abundance. And and that's where, I've told people, different people know him as a legend for the work he does in film. And it's like I know him as a legend from a lot of different like intimate moments, and that camera really reflects that to me. So
I get tears in my eyes just with you telling that story and chills too. It's just so beautiful. Again, it exemplifies who he is and what this film is all about. Because it's all about that in community and helping each other and being there and being strong. I also want to just briefly talk about, because I think it was the last performance for
mm.
Emmett Walsh, who we all have seen in so many, many, many films throughout the years, and he's such an incredible actor. What was it like working with him?
Yeah, it was Emmett was so sweet, in his I shouldn't say sweet. He's like a sailor. He's got the mouth of a sailor, He'd be like, ah, rah, rah, rah. You just kind of be grumbling around. But it was sweet in the sense where you could tell there's a real tenderness to him. And, he was doing this because him and Craig were friends. And so Craig just had asked if Emmett could be a part of the project. And Emmett graciously said, yeah, I'll put me in whatever role you want. And so, yeah, Emmett was just, he's just such a kooky character. I think it's like you see him in all these different wide variety of roles over the years. And and it makes sense to me after meeting him why he does what he does. But I remember his last scene in the film, he's in this hospital and we filmed it And I shook his hand. I said, "Hey, Emmett, thanks again. I know you didn't have to do any of this. This is all just such a gift." And he just started like walking away down the hall. And he's like, "You did real good, kid. I hope it gets you your next one." And he
Uh,
like never turned around. And I just have this image of like Emmett walking down the hall. And but he was just, yeah, he was lovely. And yeah, just he was just funny too. He's such a character. There's a lot of great outtakes that nobody will ever see about him and Craig riffing in this bar. And yeah,
oh,
so
you'll have to do an outtake reel, or when it goes on
totally.
DVD, you know how they add those bonus, bonus things. Where can people, what you just touched my heart with all of this. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Where can people see Green and Gold, Anders?
Yeah, so we have a short theatrical guaranteed window. So I keep saying that because everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I'll see it when it's out in theaters." But it's like, no, we get a short run. I think it's guaranteed like 4 to 7 days, depending on what theater. But it'll be nationwide in theaters, January 31st. Um, People can pre-order tickets already on Fandango or Fathom Entertainment or through our website, greenandgoldmovie.com. You can find it's in, yeah, 1,000 theaters nationwide, so there should be one close to just about everybody. Um,
Wonderful. Everybody, seek out Green and Gold. Take your family. It's a family film. It's a good film. You'll all feel really wonderful, and your hearts will be warmed when you walk out of that movie theater. So, wish you much success with the film,
Thank
Anders.
you, Jen. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
thanks for what you do here. We need this kind of thing for us as filmmakers, so thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And on that note, for everyone out there who would like to monetarily support the Jam Price Show all about movies, you can now give a tax-free donation, and you can do this through Creative Visions. Go to creativevisions.org. That's creativevisions.org. And go to the podcast section and find the Jam Price Show, and you can make a one-time donation or a monthly donation or however you would like to give it. And it's tax free. But by also donating to the Jam Price Show, you're also supporting uh, documentary and independent filmmakers because a portion goes to them too. So it's a win win for everyone. So thank you in advance for supporting the Jam Price Show, all about movies. Thank you again, Andrews. I wish you much, much success.
Thank you, Jen.